All right. So we have on my brother from another father. I guess I don't. What the fuck would you call Buddy to me? So Fred Duncan, Buddy Morris's stepson. Shit, Fred. How long have we known each other now?
It's got to be almost 15 years, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it's
yeah.
14 years maybe.
Shit. So I was an intern at Pitt when I met Fred, and then you ended up. You guys ended up. What year did you end up opening up that facility?
2012.
Holy fuck.
Yeah.
Holy shit. So now, in that time, correct me if I'm wrong. You went to chiropractic school, said, this is fucking stupid, left there, went to law school, said, this is fucking stupid, left there. Did you go to physical therapy school and do the same exact thing?
Yeah, you got the timeline a little messed up. I went to law school first, and not that it was stupid, but I was like, this is fucking miserable. And then I went back. Well, so at that point, I had already met Buddy, right? And I had been obsessed with athletics and working out and you name it for a really long time. I just didn't think that that was a job, right? It was just kind of like I love to work out, I loved Arnold, I loved reading, but it's like who works in working out? Um, but then I met Buddy. He was helping me with my shoulder. I was already on track to go to law school, so I still went. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, shit, like you could be doing this potentially. So then after that, I was like, okay, I need, obviously he gave me a bunch of reading to do, but I was like, I probably need more knowledge if I'm going to do this. So went back to undergrad. I already had an undergrad degree, took more classes to apply to physical therapy school, which was a mistake, but got into a DPT program, started at the end of the first year, asked them for my money back. Uh,
And did you get it?
no, but I just wanted like I'm one of those assholes who like even if you're not going to tell me what I want to hear, I want to sit there in front of your face and make you like understand what I'm talking about. Like I want you to feel what's going on. So like I went in there with just a host of things that we learned throughout the year that were just like outdated, incorrect. And I'm like, this education costs 40, $50,000 and I'm learning stuff that frankly shouldn't even be taught anymore. Um, so they were like, well, you're not going to get your money back, but if you want, you can transfer these credits into the chiropractic program. And I was like, I didn't really want to do that, but I was like, I could probably set up my schedule to take some of the classes I was interested in. So I could take like neuroscience and I could take biomechanics. And then when I feel like, all right, my time is done here, I'm done. So the majority of the people in the chiropractic program did not even believe in chiropractic care. I certainly didn't and don't believe in it. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to practice that just because I was not going to be able to lie to people. And so I took the classes that I wanted to. And then eventually I was like, all right, I'm out of here. And then I left.
So can we go a bit into chiropractic? Because there's a couple guys I know here that are busy dudes. They're always fully booked chiros, but the clients always need to seem to be going back. What was your big sort of hesitation with it, mate?
So just from like a purely anecdotal and personal standpoint, any adjustments always made me feel worse. So I kind of went in already with a little bit of hesitancy. Then the unwillingness of the professors to talk about, whether or not the subluxation theory makes any sense, whether it's rooted in any real science, um, trying to say that adjustments can cure somebody being deaf and potentially cure cancer, and watching the way that they would respond to those kind of questions definitely like pushed me the wrong way. And then there's a ton of research out there where it's like they have experienced chiropractors who believe that they're adjusting a certain segment, and 50% of the time they're adjusting a completely different joint, even people with experience. I think, again, the subluxation theory is one that really doesn't hold a lot of weight. And so it was just not something, like I said, that I could see myself practicing. I tell people, if you really enjoy it and it makes you feel good, then, knock yourself out. As long as the practitioner isn't, promising you things that it can't really do, I'm okay with that. I just wasn't going to be comfortable practicing that way. And so I think it is cool, though, that we have newer age chiropractors like, well, Craig Liebenson is not new, but like Craig Liebenson or Greg Lehman, who are guys that are chiropractors, but who have recognized the limitations of the standard, just adjust the cervical, thoracic, lumbar, SI joint, like that whole, just come in and get everything adjusted. So it's been really cool to see them being willing to step out of that role, learn more about exercise, learn more about different methods, and be willing to change.
So here's you and I are very similar in this sense where I had I had some issues with some things in acupuncture school where, I pushed back a lot, frequently. A lot of my peers accused me of ruining their education. Um, but uh, I don't buy a lot of stuff. Now, I was fortunate where I had some I had some slaps for professors, but like I had some really really good people where they'd flat out look at me and be like, I don't know. Like, maybe. And I had some professors that were Western influenced, that were traditionally educated in Chinese medicine, and then were also like nurses, or and one guy that's going to become an MD and a physician. And we talk about things, and you can see they can bridge the pieces together to make a point, but they weren't so diluted in a lot of the woo woo. And that's where I I rather than saying the woo woo is bullshit, I kind of tell people like I'm just not good at it, because I'm not going to ruin. Let's say it is placebo. Let's just say it is. I'm not saying it is, but let's say it is. Even the curing cancer for chiropractic or whatever the hell it is, I'm not about to ruin that for someone, because Brooker, what's the statistics of placebo? Do you remember?
Well, placebo works even when people know they're taking placebo. And I think that's also one of the things that makes chiropractic work quite persuading, is because there's a very physical sensation and you can usually hear things, especially if it's then combined with certain language before and after, and if they're expecting it to work pretty well. But my big thing here is anyone that goes to the chiro, they go as soon as there's an issue, they keep going back, and it's never a one and done treatment. Um, but I can see he's the one guy I know in particular, he's a very, very busy man. He has people coming through. He has 4 different chiros, and there's a big wait list, and every appointment starts every, I think, 15 minutes. So it's a popular trade.
Mhm.
I know he's making a bunch of money from it, but yeah, it's hard to know how much is placebo, because placebo definitely works.
Yeah, and the one other thing I'll say too is, in the U.S. the medical field is pretty fucked. Um, it's tough because you only get paid for your profession. So in acupuncture school, they had this cute little shirt that they'd sell that said, I have a needle for that. Like, like, oh, I have a headache. I have a needle for that. Like, oh, my fucking eye hurts. I have a needle for that. Like, so it's, and in chiropractic, you get paid for cervical adjustments, thoracic adjustments, sacral adjustments, and lumbar adjustments. What else do you get paid for? By insurance. That's probably all they're allowed to charge for. Acupuncturists, you're only allowed to charge for needling. Or, excuse me, they'll only bill, they'll only send you money for needling, and needling for pain and maybe for nausea. Other than that, the scraping or the gua sha, the cupping, the any kind of heat element that we add to it, just like with physical therapists, stim and ice. They don't pay for it. They don't get paid out for it. So you're handcuffed. So these guys are, it's man with a hammer syndrome. They have to solve every fucking problem with the hammer because insurance companies just give them a nail. So like I give a little grace with a lot of these practitioners that are addressing everything through the cervical adjustment because it's like, well, fuck, this is all I'm legally allowed to do. You know what I mean? What do you think of that, Fred?
Look, I'm definitely not trying to tell anybody how they should run their practice. I mean, I just think that, and I know that some people enjoy it. So I would not tell those people not to do it. I just think that anybody that is, a good practitioner, a good coach, is willing to try to refute their own theories and their own beliefs. And I just think that if you're not willing to do that, then maybe you're not that interested in truth, and that's fine. Like, you live your life how you want to live it, but that's just the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. So like, I always talk about how, like, we ran into this issue during COVID when people were just saying, trust the science, right? And I'm like, well, the ironic part here is that that's the most anti-fucking science stance in the world, right? Because science, number one, is not like a binary true false statement, right? Science is about developing theories and then rigorously attempting to refute those theories. It's not trusting the theory. It's actually the opposite of that, right? And so I think what I look for in the people that I want to learn from are the people that are okay trying to refute even their own practice. And that's like what I mentioned, Craig. It's like the guy grew up as a chiropractor. That's what he did. And now he's totally on board with people being like, maybe that's not the way. And it's that process that I'm interested in. And again, I don't, not going to tell somebody how to practice and what to bill for. I just want my decision-making process to be more along those lines, where I'm thinking about, okay, this is what I believe is true, but I'm also willing to accept that it might not be true. And so, you can't just focus on data without quantifying like the unknowns. So the unknowns have to remain present, and that even stands for the things that I believe in. So I'm okay with that being wrong, like, because I guess I don't just charge for one very specific thing, right? And I'm okay with using different methods to try and get somebody better or help them. And if I can't help them, then hopefully somebody else can. Like, I don't mind them going to somebody and getting something done if I can't help them. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny. You always in the past have always been pushing back hard on a lot of different modalities. And it's always like, even though I know, like, it's never at me, it's always at me. Like, like Fred will put some random post on Facebook like, hey, for those of you that want your daily placebo regimen of cupping, your guys are fucking idiots. Like,
I literally just made fun of one of my clients this week for getting cupping.
So there's an argument against cupping by a lot of people. Now,
yeah, but real quick, not to cut you off, a lot of it is just good natured questioning things and being curious about it, and not taking it so personal. And what I say in my seminars a lot is that people tend to be looking for like, people are just looking for affirmation is what most people want. And that just leads to just more and more confirmation bias. They're not actually looking for like information. They just want people to agree with them. And I don't have any problem being wrong. I just kind of like, pushing buttons a little bit, and let's just see where we go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I'm 100% for it. There are aspects of acupuncture that I really buy into, but I wasn't going to let anyone necessarily know that I bought into it while I was questioning it. You know, like I want to question everything as hard as I can and really try to get to the truth of everything. Um, and even going back to the cupping, is it placebo? Does it actually work? So the conversations I've had with people was, well, do you believe massage works? And for people that say, yeah, massage works, but cupping doesn't work, well, that's inconsistent because one's positive pressure, one's negative pressure. It's just fucking pressure. Now, there's research to suggest that it doesn't matter what type of massage you get. Doesn't matter what type of they had, I think it was like 2,500 massages done. They had 10-year massage therapists with their own methods and techniques, and then they had students, and they were massaging military personnel with back pain, and there was zero difference in results for reduction of back pain. Now, massage definitely helped reduce the back pain, but as far as like the quality of the massage or the technique of the massage, it didn't fucking matter in reducing the incidence of lower back pain. So at some point, like, is it the massage? Does massage help? Is it the physical touch? Is it just laying there still? Like, what the hell is it? You know, like, I don't know, and I'm willing to accept all ends of it. However, with cupping, I've had great results, and using cupping on people with. I had an NFL guy with hamstring pain, and it just didn't matter what we did. Like, the hamstring pain was kind of still there. Like, we could do some massage techniques on the hamstring, near the hamstring, whatever. I cupped his cervical vertebrae, because I remember way back that Dan Paff had said there's a link between like C6 and C7 and hamstring pulls. I was like, cool. So I'll just go like UB channel, like that's the urinary bladder channel. I said, let me just cup the UB channel, and see what happens. Hamstring pain went away immediately. Yeah, cool, whatever. I've also had guys where I'll do fascial stretch therapy on them. Doesn't work. I'll do needling on them. Doesn't work. I'll do Twina with like some kind of like mobs on them. Doesn't work. Eldoa stretches. Doesn't work. Activation doesn't work. Cupping. Wow. Feel better. And it was the last thing I did. You know, like, shit, man. I don't fucking know. You know, like, and I'm willing. I have no problem being wrong with it, but there are just times where it's like, man, this shit has worked. I don't know why it worked, and these people didn't believe that it was going to work. They didn't even know what the hell cupping was until I did that. You know, it's I don't know, bro. I'm all over the map with this shit.
I don't have any issue with people trying things to try to get somebody better, right? And I mean, that's really, at the end of the day, like, that's all you're doing, and having the ability to try different things is certainly going to help. I would just want people to think about why they're getting something done, and then the person that's doing it, like, if I was you, after the C6, C7, and that helped his hamstring, I would be genuinely like curious if I could reproduce that. Because then I would be like, okay, maybe I'm onto something here, or maybe it was just a fucking fluke and there was something else that happened, right? But it's like, so that's, like I'm saying, that it's like the thought process that I'm interested in, and trying to repeat those efforts over time.
Yeah, and like in that situation, and this is why it's so difficult to prove, disprove, or suggest probability with acupuncture, with manual therapy, with all these different types, is because, well, it just fucking depends, right? Like, this guy happened to have a tight thoracic spine. So from then on forward, we would do some thoracic spine mobs, cervical spine mobs, and it was able to free up some stuff with his hamstring after that. Like, that was, at that moment, that was the lowest hanging fruit. But as we all know, you know, it's always, the bar always moves. You know, now it exposes something else. Like, what's the main problem? You know, so but I mean, that took him from a 6-7 pain all the way down to a 1 within the first session. Within the like, you know what I mean? Like, holy shit,
Yeah.
cool, awesome. I'll take it. Brooker, what do you have to say about that?
Bro, there's so many things that don't make always the most sense, does it? You know, even basic things like guys coming in and not feeling too good before warm up, something's niggling them, they get warm, and then all of a sudden it's gone. I mean, that's probably an
Yeah.
easier one to explain, but I don't know, man. Pretty amazing.
So let's change pace a little bit. Real quick, when I had first talked to Fred about coming on the podcast, he first thing he said was, "Well, I don't want to talk training. I just want to talk about fucking cooking." I was like, "What?" I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, like if I could just review food for a living and not do training shit, like I'd do that." Like,
Man versus food part 2. I'm
So
ready
since you're
for
from
anybody that's
Buffalo,
watching that wants me to go after it.
so since you're from Buffalo, then, and you were telling me about the wings, is that the first thing you'd be reviewing, my man? Wings? Are you an
No,
expert on that?
no, I have a more refined, sophisticated taste than that. I mean, yeah, wings or whatever, but I'm all over the place. I want to eat everything. I'll try it all. Pizza, you name it, Italian. Um, that would be the dream job for me. Man versus food too.
Well, if you keep getting famous, continue to get more famous as you are online, that might be your new spin-off, mate. Fred
Hey,
was telling me
like I
beforehand how
said,
well we're doing.
anybody that's watching, if you want me to come review your food, I will share it on my Instagram for the right price.
I am for sale.
Everybody has a number. Everybody has a number. I'm no different.
So, Brooker, have I talked to you about my cooking lately?
No,
Oh, bro, I've been fucking crushing. I've been
cool.
absolute. So I decided that as long as I make it and I process the stuff myself, like it's okay to eat it. I started making my own pasta. Vicky started making her own bread. And homemade pasta with the right flour. Like we do all imported flour from Italy. It is phenomenal. Brooker, have you ever done it yourself?
My brother's done it before. I'm not, you know me, mate. I'm not spending so much time in the kitchen. I'll cook some steaks. That's about it.
Fred, do you cook at all?
0. I retired from cooking in probably 2010. And I have not cooked a single thing since then. I don't have any plans to. I tend to leave I let experts do their job, right? So, I mean, there's cooks, there's restaurants, those guys exist for a reason. I'm not going to try to do their job. My wife is an amazing cook. She bakes her own sourdough bread. I mean, we've been basically eating fucking sourdough everything since she started this sourdough starter thing. I mean, sourdough pancakes and muffins and bread. And it's like all I ever get anymore is sourdough. But no, I absolutely do not cook. I eat.
Oh man, dude, Brooker, have you ever read through Fred's comment section?
No, 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 no.
Yo, Fred, in my opinion, like I'm just biased, I guess, but I think Fred is probably one of the funniest people in our industry. Like up there, you need to read his comment section so someone will comment on him, and Fred will be like, and it'll be some like fat dude commenting on like, oh well, you're wrong about this aerobic stuff, and Fred's like, oh well, you've been wrong all along about this titty boy, like, dude, he's
I mean, the
Is that your
people.
secret to growth then, Fred, mate? You're just ripping people up or what? You know,
Well, I
controversy.
mean, the algorithm definitely favors responding to comments, right? And
Yeah.
it just kind of drives engagement, but also it's just like sometimes I don't know where the fuck these people come from to come in and chime in with an opinion when number one, nobody asked. Number two, literally nobody on earth knows who you are. And three, like you don't know anything that you're talking about. So I just don't understand feeling comfortable coming into that scenario and giving your opinion. Like I can't help it. I just have to call you a moron and point out why. But yeah, it also does it does drive up engagement a little bit on the post. And for me, it's fun. I mean, I think anybody that grew up an athlete playing sports, I mean, you talk shit, it's kind of just like there's a competitive aspect to it, but it's also just fun. It's like, yeah, I mean, I like to give it back to people when they come and comment. So Mike enjoys reading it. I'll send him some good ones, here and there.
Dude, he's fucking Brooker. You need to read through his comment section. It's my wife and I'll sit on the couch sometimes and I'll just read them to her. And she gets such a kick out. Fred, I'm not shitting you. Like it's the funniest thing to me. Like just to watch him rip these fucking people. I'm like, oh, he's ruthless. And I mean, Brooker, you know me. Like, unless I get crossed, like I'm a total pussy. Like I'm so soft and I'm always like, oh, it's okay. Like I'll explain everything as if, it was me asking the question I didn't know. And Fred's just like, get off my page, you fucking loser.
Yeah, Mike has been too nice lately. And he's been trying to pull me to that side, but it's not happening. It's not happening.
So before we got recording, Fred was telling me about, his online programming and online business, and it's taken him 2 years. I hope you don't mind me sharing this, Fred.
No, go ahead.
But after 2 years, he's making more money online than he was making in person at the gym facility. Maybe we can go into a little bit about that, mate, because soon maybe you don't have to be worrying about the cupping and all of that stuff, mate. You won't even be on the gym floor. You can be just expanding your online side hustles, mate.
Yeah, so I mean, and I've told Mike this before. I started to post more online because I was going to treat it kind of like a job, and I recognized, well, really, so like the first time I ever spoke at a seminar was in like, well, no, actually, I did Elite FTS a long time ago, but it's funny because so Craig Levinson was coming to Buffalo to give a seminar, and somebody had texted me and was like, hey, you should go to this. I think you and Craig would get along well. And I was like, oh God, a seminar of physical therapists and chiropractors, that's my worst fucking nightmare. And I was like, I probably really don't want to go. But then Craig emailed me and they were like, just come check it out. It was like 5-10 minutes in, and I'm like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Like I was like ready to get up and walk the fuck out. I'm like, I can't be in this room. And he asked everybody in the crowd if they had heard of Greg Lehman and the biopsychosocial model of pain. And he just asked everybody to raise their hand. There was probably 80 people in the room, and like 4 of us raised our hands, and one of them was me. And he was like, well, why don't you come up here and explain it to the room? And I was like, oh, all right. So I went up there, and it was like a 3-day course. For the rest of those 3 days, I mean, which again, goes back to Craig kind of being willing to learn. He had me speak. And up until that time, like I said, I did a presentation at Elite FDS maybe in 2012, but I didn't really have any desire to be speaking and teaching. And I just felt like that wasn't, probably something that I had really earned at that point. But it's funny, Mike, because during that seminar, there was a lot of Mike Boyle fans. And I had to like break down why I'm okay with barbell benching. And they all were treating it like it was so scary and terrible for you. And oh my God, everybody sits at a desk and their pecs are shortened. And how could you have them bench? So I know that you just made a post about talking with Mike the other day. But after that, I recognize like there's all these people online making videos. There's these people teaching seminars. And like 90+% of them don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They haven't ever done shit. And so like, why wouldn't I just do that? I mean, it's like, yeah, I don't believe I'm Charlie Francis. I don't believe I'm Buddy Morris. I don't believe I'm Dan Paff. Like those guys have forgotten more than I know. but I certainly know more than this slapdick on Instagram that's never actually worked with anybody that's has 100,000 followers and people are listening to their information. So I was like, I might as well hop on here and play ball a little bit and see what I can do, see if I can grow this over time. And I also did have my first child, so I wanted to spend more time at home and less time in person. So I was like, okay, I'm going to shorten my schedule. I'm going to hire somebody and I'm going to try to devote more time to creating content and that part of my business. So now I sell a lot of ebooks and I do a lot of consulting and I do a lot of custom programs for athletes that aren't in my area.
Bro, that's awesome. And kudos to you, bro. I don't have gumption isn't the word. I'm too big of a pussy to really put myself out there like you do. Like you put your opinions out there, and I mean you let everyone know exactly where you stand and you defend your stance. I'm too big of a twat. Like I really fucking am. Like I can't. Kier told me one time, he's like, well, if you want to advance from the trench, you need to stick your head up. But the problem with sticking your head up is you get shot at. Like he goes, you just got to be willing to get shot at. And bro, you are, and you fucking shoot back at these motherfuckers really hard.
I mean, like I said, I feel very confident in the work that I put in to know what I'm talking about. And that doesn't mean that I'm never wrong. Like I'm wrong often, or that somebody doesn't point out something that I didn't know. But I'm still very confident that I'm doing more than whoever is criticizing me. So that doesn't bother me, because typically the person that's criticizing somebody else, that's usually not the guy that actually knows what they're talking about and is putting in the kind of work that, like if they were, they would get a hold of you on the side, or they would reach out to you through text or through a phone call and be like, hey, they're not these random, guys with anime fucking pictures on their Instagram with 4 posts and 7 followers that are like, you're wrong. Like I'm very confident that I've thought more about this training thing than that guy has.
It's funny you say that. I posted a video of Rolf talking about, I don't know, like TPV or some of the metrics that he's measuring, and someone had commented, is like, well, the difference between all this is like Rolf just seems to be trying to reinvent the wheel and making up metrics and measuring things that don't even matter. Like, who is he trained? And I commented as like, you mean besides being a part of the team that trained the fastest person in existence? Like, what are you talking about? Who is he trained? He's, oh, well, yeah, well, other than being a one-hit wonder. Like, a one-hit wonder? That's a hell of a fucking hit, number one. and number two, bro, like he's got a guy competing in the Olympics. He's got a guy, he's done this for decades, fucking decades. And these people have the balls to attempt to, and of course, motherfucker had no followers, didn't follow anyone. His account was like Willy Wonka. What a loser. What, like.
There we go. There we go, Mike. Here we go.
Could you imagine if he was unleashed, though, Fred? Could you imagine?
I would love it. I would love it. I mean, people are too comfortable online just spewing bullshit. And it's what I've told you before, Mike, is like when you first brought up Randy Huntington to me, I didn't know much about his work. And I told you that like his work with Sue is great, but for me, what I enjoy seeing is the way that they view the training process. So like, I don't even necessarily care who you're working with and who you've worked with. I mean, obviously it's nice to see that you're able to get results, but like one of the main reasons that Charlie Francis or even James Smith are people that I enjoy their work so much is because they make me think. And I like the way that they view the entirety of the training process. So, yeah, I mean, outside of like Ben Johnson and a couple other people, Charlie's work is just, it's influenced so many people, but it's just so fascinating to sit and read the way that he thought about training and how he made decisions. So like those are the kind of people that I like to learn from. And then after I started to look into Randy's work, when you told me about him, it was the same thing. It's like, yeah, Stu is awesome. And I love seeing what they did with him. But I also just really like listening to the things that they're looking for. So like TPV and, I'm not even saying whether or not I know enough about that metric to say it's useful or not useful. I know that you had a podcast on that recently, but I like the way that they're going about trying to find the solution to their problem, right? Because that's really all we are, is like we're just problem solvers, and trying to use the tools that we have to the best of our ability to find the solution for our athletes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're on the hunt. You're looking for it. So tell me what and it's tough to, stare at
That
this.
podcast drove me crazy, but you know that.
Yeah. Well, it's tough to look at the Sistine Chapel and critique it. You know what I mean? Like I don't have the balls to sit there and look at Michelangelo and look at his work and be like, should have done this. It's and that's how I look at like a Charlie Francis. I look at even, a Randy Huntington, like Dan Paff, and in my opinion, like Rolf is up there too. Like these guys, they're incredible, and they've been doing it for so long at such a high level. But it's important to think what could be better, because if you're not, if you're not critiquing something, then this is the pinnacle. This is the apex. This is as far as it goes. If you're not going to do anything better than what they're doing. So I now, learning more about what Randy does and what Path has done, I look at what Charlie does, or did, excuse me. And I wonder, what could I have done better if I was in those shoes? And he was so incredibly holistic in his approach that, like, me personally, what would I have done differently? Well, I don't know if I would have done as much heavy lifting, as much slow heavy lifting as they did, but I loved the high box squats that they did in retrospect, and they moved it quick, even though it was heavy. Like maybe I would have done faster lifting, but as far as like speed work, the hell would I have done differently? They did it right, but then you look at Ben coming out of the blocks, like, oh well, if I'm one of those fucking biomechanists, like, oh well, I was externally rotated this and internally rotated that. He still had the fastest start. He still won the fucking gold. What would you, when you look at these greats, what critiques do you have?
No, it's so I actually still don't think that we have anybody that's quite like Charlie, and that is absolutely not a disrespect to any, because like I think that there's some tremendous coaches today. I think what made Charlie so unique is like a lot of times when Dan is talking, 95% of people don't know what he's talking about, right?
Everyone knew what Charlie was saying.
Yes. So Charlie had the unique ability to break down complex topics into very simple, whether they were analogies or one-liners or even jokes, to make people understand what he was talking about. That's like true mastery. That is just like, to me, that shows that you are a real expert. I think that Charlie's system was very, in terms of like weight training, was very general. He did not believe in trying to be overly specific with training. And I think that's probably where people today are a little bit different. I think today we have this reliance on data and things that we can measure, right? But there's a flaw in measuring data and assuming that it's evidence, because you overvalue what you can measure, right? And then you start to just focus on the things that you're measuring. And then this creates risk asymmetries in the things that you don't see and that you're not measuring. And so in complex systems, which the human body is a complex system, the most important thing would actually be what you don't see, right? So the most important thing is not what you know, it's actually what you don't know. And in the book Black Swan, Nassim Taleb talks about how 9/11 happened because there was vulnerabilities in the system. And afterwards, we have TSA, we have this, and that, but a black swan event is something that you do not see coming, right? And so going and fixing the next black swan will not be through what happened before. It'll be something completely different that you aren't looking for, because now all you're looking for is go through TSA. We'll look through your bag. Like, we're just going to look for what already happened. And so, like I was saying about Charlie, is that Charlie just kept it very, very basic and general. And I'm not even saying that that's the right approach. I'm just saying that I think today we get a little too caught up in the data. I mean, think about all the data that we have, right? We've had a record amount of injuries in the MLB. We're probably nearing that in the NFL. We've never had more data, right? But what is our data based on, right? A lot of times, if we're talking about we have this tendency to want everything to be in really simple, neat boxes, right? Even when we talk about biomotor abilities, speed, strength, stamina, skill, suppleness, power. And then we're like, okay, first off, none of those exist in a vacuum. Okay. But then we want to measure each of them. Okay, how do you measure speed? Speed is going to be relative to whatever, speed of contraction, speed in a 10-yard dash, speed in a fly, speed in 100, speed in a 400. So those things also all require coordination. Coordination is a skill, right? Okay, well, we're going to test power, and we're going to use a vertical jump. Well, a more skilled vertical jumper is going to have higher power because they're more skilled at the act of jumping. But what does that necessarily mean? Is it relative to whatever that person's goal is? The power has to be somewhat specific to whatever the task is, right? So in the other podcast, you guys were talking about dynamic correspondence, right? And like I've told you, dynamic correspondence is just simply a method for evaluating similarities between movements. That's all it is. It's not this cut and dry where we know that everything is going to line up perfectly. And if you look at so what is it? It's amplitude, direction of movement. It's the dynamics of the movement, the rate of force development, the muscular regime work, and then one other one, right? But then from there, they break it down okay, is it primary transfer? Is it secondary transfer? Is it tertiary transfer? Is it positive transfer? Is it negative transfer? Is it neutral? Right? So I don't think anybody's suggesting that it's this definite answer that we have when using dynamic correspondence. It's actually just the best system that we have when trying to find similarities between these movements. Okay, this is the direction of the force, right? These are the angles that the person is using in this movement. So I don't have a problem with dynamic correspondence, but I also, again, I don't think anybody is suggesting that it's infallible. I think it's just a method that we're trying to look at. It's what we do in the weight room, the skill on the field. Is there overlap here? And then how do we work within that overlap?